Hey guys, real quick, this is going to be a guide for beginner level players to KH2 Rando. If you've played KH2 Rando for a long time, you probably know most of this already. I'm going to give a detailed rundown of every ability in the game to try and help new players decide which abilities are useful, what to equip, what not to equip, and discuss some niche use cases for some abilities that get underlooked. I'm also going to go over some commonly used abilities that I don't think are very good in speedruns. Overall, this can be pretty subjective, so if you find success with some strategies that I don't mention, that's perfectly fine. Again, this guide is meant for beginners who are looking to learn about more abilities and which ones are more useful in speedrunning rando specifically. Okay, so I'm going to structure this kind of like a tier list, but in no way is this a strict rule of which abilities are actually better than others in every single way. Keep in mind, most of the abilities in this game are pretty useful, and in general, every tool that you get is pretty good, except for a few outliers that we will discuss later. Okay, so starting off, I'm going to talk about some S tier abilities. These are the best abilities in the game in my opinion. If you find them in a rando seed, you're going to be benefiting and speeding up your game significantly. Right off the bat, I'm going to talk about Experience Boost. I think Experience Boost is probably the best ability in the game. In standard settings, when Sora has his default ability pool randomized, you're going to see 2 Experience Boosts per seed. Sometimes 1 or 2 of them are going to be on Keyblades. Sometimes you find it in your ability pool. But generally, if you find an experience boost, that is a really good sign that your rando seed is going to be good. With this double experience, you're going to hit your stats way faster, you're going to get stronger way faster, and you're going to find the checks on your levels way faster. Being able to power up Sora way faster than normal, and then being able to run harder and harder content easier, being able to do boss fights faster, that's just an insane ability to speed up your seeds. Do not ignore experience boost. Next up, we have a really big one that a lot of people are expecting to be this high on the list. Of course, it's Explosion. Explosion is the one that when you see it pop up in the chest, you go, oh shit, Explosion, every single time. It is the highest damaging ability in the game, right next to Reflect, but we're not talking about Reflect today. It's the best combo finisher in the entire game. It does AoE damage, it scales with your magic stat, it only costs 3 AP, so if you're in seeds where your AP is becoming an issue, Explosion's never an issue to equip. It always does tons of damage, and you can do combos out of Magnet to clear AoE enemies really fast. It's really good at single target damage as well. If you have Explosion on instead of Guard Break, it will always use the Explosion as the combo finisher, even on a single target. It's just incredible damage. Explosion is amazing. Always equip Explosion. Next up on the list, I'm going to talk about one that a lot of people kind of don't think about because most of the time we start with it equipped in every settings. But it's Guard. Self-explanatory, press the square button to block. Keep that shit on, don't take it off. If you do, that's stupid, don't do that. I don't know why you would. Okay, next up is a couple of abilities actually paired together. Both of them are very good separately, but everybody knows in S tier goes Second Chance and Once More. They are important checks on your tracker for a reason, especially when you're playing in critical mode. These guys will save your life. I've played seeds without these abilities, and sometimes you just don't get them, you're just unlucky. It can be pretty hard, it can be a struggle. Just to go over what they do and how they're separate from each other. Second Chance keeps you alive from taking lethal damage. So let's say you're at 10 HP, you take 10 damage, you're at 1 HP. Second Chance will keep you there. But the next time you get hit, you will die. So Second Chance basically turns you into Sonic the Hedgehog, right? You drop your rings, you have no rings, you die when you get hit the next time, right? Once More is a little bit different, and I think in a lot of cases is actually better. Once More makes sure that you do not die while you're in a combo, like at all. If you have both of them equipped, you will get knocked down to 1 HP, and then as long as you're still in the same combo, you won't get killed. Both of them is nice. In my opinion, in beginner mode, Once More is extremely valuable, and Second Chance is less valuable. and in critical mode, second chance is a little bit more valuable than once more. Okay, the final ability that we're going to talk about in S tier is Trinity Limit. Now, the reason this goes in S tier above some of the other abilities that I think are also really powerful is because this is an ability that can actually change your routing in the middle of a rando seed. If you have Trinity Limit, there are certain fights that just become so much easier or faster to do. If you don't have Final Form, you can use the Trinity Limit with Donald and Goofy to do the station fight extremely quickly, and you don't need to worry about waiting 90 seconds or getting 100 hits in. Trinity Limit will just give you that 100 hits immediately. As Sora, Solo Sora, in fights like Roxas and Xemnas 1, if you don't have any other better tools, like say Limit Form, you can pop a Trinity Limit, and at the end of your combo, just pop Trinity, and you will start to extend your combo. You can use it alongside Limit Form, use your mana, you do the Trinity Limit, then pop Limit Form, do your Limit Form thing, and a lot of times, if you have low stats, and you are struggling to like really keep a boss under your control, Trinity Limit can be a pretty good answer. Not having Trinity Limit or Limit Form going into STT is extremely slow, and picking up one of these in a random chest could really save your run. Before I get into the A tier, I want to talk about an ability that I think is like an honorable mention for S tier, and that's Light and Darkness. Light and Darkness can change your run instantly, give you Final Form instantly. With Light and Darkness equipped, whenever you go into a dry form, you have a chance to go into anti-form or a chance to go into Final Form. When you go into Final Form this way, you unlock Final Form permanently, meaning even if you haven't found it in your rando seed, you have Final Form. You have it for real, and you can level it up and everything. It's very, very powerful. Just remember to turn it off after you use it. Okay, going into the A tier, these are abilities that I think you should always have equipped, or at least most of the time have equipped, unless you have a good reason to not have them equipped. These abilities are always good. Maybe they're not as like game changing as the S tier abilities, but they make your game just so much more smooth, make Sora so much stronger, and your fights so much faster. Let's start off with a few that are usually equipped anyway in most settings. I'm going to talk about Aerial Recovery, Scan, and Finishing Plus. Let's talk about Scan first because it's the most simple. Obviously, you look at an enemy, you see their health bar. Looking at the health bars are super useful, especially for bosses. I feel like I don't need to explain this one. It should always be on. Aerial Recovery. A lot of people don't use Aerial Recovery enough, but I think a lot of people also use it wrong and use it too much sometimes. So let me go over Aerial Recovery real fast. When you get knocked into the air, when you get put into hit stun, Sora goes into a state where he's flying backwards. In that state, you cannot do anything. You cannot attack, you cannot cast spells, but you can use Aerial Recovery. Aerial Recovery gives you the option to jump and kind of spin out of that animation where you're just falling. A lot of times this is really useful to get back into the fight or get yourself out of a combo. However, Aerial Recovery becomes less useful when you're in a combo that will kill you. Let's say you have Second Chance and Once More equipped. If you Aerial Recovery, the next time you get hit, it counts as the start of another combo. You've broken the first combo and you get hit again and you will die. So if anybody's been confused about getting killed while in Second Chance and Once More, it might be because you use Aerial Recovery and we're just mashing the circle button without thinking about it. That being said though, Aerial Recovery is extremely useful. It's fantastic. It should always be equipped. Now let's talk about Finishing Plus. Finishing Plus is a bit of a harder ability to understand for some new players. But in the simplest terms, you get a second finishing move. So in a normal combo, you would 1, 2, 3, and your third hit would be that guard break, or if you don't have guard break on, it would be that explosion. If you have Finishing Plus equipped, you get both finishers, because you get a second finisher after your first one. Now, if you don't have two finishing moves equipped, it will do, let's say, Explosion, and then Sora's base finisher, which looks like that. The more Finishing Pluses you have equipped, the more finishing moves you add on to the end of your combo. One finishing plus is enough to give you 2 finishing moves. And you can pair it with something like a magnet to get a finisher off really quickly. Magnet is a weird case spell where it always counts as a finisher when you cast it. So if you cast magnet and then press the X button or the attack button, you're always going to get your finisher right away. Okay, next we're going to talk about a pretty big one that everybody knows is on the list in A tier. It's Combo Master. Now a lot of people will put this into S tier. I think that's fine. I'm going to put it in A tier. I think Combo Master doesn't make or break your run, but it does make your runs a lot easier. Now, a lot of people know that Combo Master lets you continue your combo even if you don't hit an enemy, which is very strong, but there's some other uses with Combo Master as well, notably with the spell Reflect. Now, if you look here, I do not have Combo Master equipped right now, okay? I'm going to use Reflect, and then I'm going to mash the attack button. That's as fast as it comes out, okay? And I have to restart my combo from hit 1. Reflect combos into itself, but doesn't combo into any other attacks because it doesn't hit an enemy. Now, with Combo Master on, your Reflects can combo straight into attacks or other magics. This means that you can use Reflects early and then continue into a combo. And this can be really powerful with Slide Dash and Flash Step, especially. Those are your 2 like good gap closers in this game. So if you have an enemy that is far away from you, and you press Reflect and parry one of their attacks with it, and then you have Sliding Dash on, you will slide into them out of the Reflect, get the blast damage from the Reflect while you're hitting them with Sliding Dash, and then combo them. And then if you have an ability like Explosion as well, you're doing the Reflect damage and the Explosion damage all at the same time. Combo Master can be really good for that kind of stuff. This also works with abilities like Aerial Dive, which is like an aerial gap closer in a way. Certain fights like Zaldin, it's really good to start off with a Reflect and then an Aerial Dive so that you're jumping into him with the Aerial Dive attack and the Reflect damage all at once. Next up in the A tier, we have Combo Boost and Air Combo Boost. These 2 abilities are basically the same things for different types of attacks. Combo Boost is used on the ground, and Air Combo Boost is used in the air. These boost abilities increase the damage of your finishing moves by 10% per hit of your combo. Let's say you have a 1-2-3 combo, your explosion is going to do 30% extra damage. Put these on, they're incredible. They give you so much damage. Okay, next up in A tier, we have 3 abilities that I've already briefly mentioned. These are your gap closers. So you have Slide Dash, Flash Step, and Aerial Dive. Flash Step and Slide Dash are your grounded gap closers. And Aerial Dive is your aerial gap closer. Aerial Sweep kind of is a gap closer as well. We'll talk about that one a little bit later. It doesn't quite match up to like the level of these 3 in my opinion. Slide Dash and Flash Step should both be equipped at all times, even though they're both grounded gap closers. Slide Dash can hit from much further away, but isn't as fast. And Flash Step will hit if you're in that mid-range to the target and will basically teleport Sora into the target. And Aerial Dive should always be kept on as well. If the target is in the air, kind of farther away from Sora, he will start swinging around in the air and just doing tons of damage, and it's easy to cancel the attack into another one. Aerial Dive is really good. Now we'll talk about one that a lot of new players get confused with Aerial Dive and Aerial Sweep, and that's Aerial Spiral. This move's not a gap closer, but it does convert one of your aerial attacks into like a spinning move that has a multi-hit. This does a lot of damage, and it can be really useful to cancel it into other attacks, and in some cases loop enemies with the spiral and something else, like Peter Pan or even Donald's Duck Flare limit. It's just generally better than like the regular aerial attack that you get, so. Continuing the A tier with just another attack that makes some of your regular basic attacks better is Slapshot. Now, Aerial Spiral was in the air, Slapshot is on the ground. For how much faster your attacks become, and how your attacks can be cancelled quicker into other attacks and finishing moves. Do be aware though that your attacks are a little bit stubbier when you're using Slapshot. Sometimes Slapshot can miss and can become a huge problem. Personally, I have it equipped all the time and I never have an issue with it, but I know that it can be an issue. This next one may come at a bit of a surprise to some people seeing it this high in A tier, but I really do think this ability is amazing, and it's Damage Drive. Damage Drive basically converts damage that you take into drive gauge. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, abilities that require you to take damage in order to work generally aren't good because you don't really want to take damage in this game at all, but Damage Drive, in my opinion, is the best one. You can be almost in that range of like getting to limit form or something, and then take a hit, have second chance, and then get that drive back, and then instantly pop your form. In certain cases, it really does save you. Lastly, at the end of A tier, I have Item Boost. Item Boost is incredibly strong and gets overlooked way too much in my opinion. In Rando Seeds, you're going to be buying ethers way more often than you're going to have things like Elixir. And those ethers with Item Boost giving an additional 50% of that mana back could be really significant. And if you have more than one Item Boost, sometimes your ethers can actually just refund your mana bar like an Elixir without healing you. Let's say you're in Space Paranoids and you're using Experience Boost along with the screens to level up rapidly fast. Now, if you're using something like Magnet or you're using Fires or whatever and you're using up your magic bar and you don't have a better way to like get yourself back mana other than using ethers, Item Boosts can refund your entire mana bar if you have multiples of them and not heal you, so it won't put you out of XP boost range either. Also, Item Boost, just with potions or whatever, can just be a lifesaver. This ability is just amazing, and if you have it on your other party members like Donald and Goofy, I would put it on them too if you give them ethers throughout the run. Okay, that does it for A tier. Let's continue on to the B tier, which are still things that I think are very useful in Rando, but less useful than things that I would always have equipped. We're going to start off this list with an ability that not a lot of people know how to use properly, and that's Finishing Leap. Basically, you want to be using Finishing Leap after your combo to slam into the ground and bounce enemies up. It's kind of more of a crowd control ability than a damage ability, but it does do decent damage and can be used as kind of like a mini explosion at the end of your combo. It also does count as a finisher, so it can be really useful with finishing plus out of a magnet, just like I was talking about with explosion and guard break. So you can press your magnet and then press square to do the Finishing Leap and pop the enemies up right out of the magnet. Next up in the B tier, I have to bring up Guard Break. Now, Guard Break is a really good ability and probably could be put higher. The only reason it isn't in the A tier is because an ability like Explosion is just so much better. Guard Break is the grounded finisher that takes priority over Explosion and takes priority in single target scenarios. So if you want to use just one finisher, you usually want that Explosion to go off. But if you don't have Explosion, or if you want to equip both, that's also pretty good. Guard Break is also better than Explosion if your strength is significantly higher than your magic, because Guard Break scales with strength and Explosion scales with magic. So keep in mind your stats and which one is going to do more damage to certain enemies as well. I know like certain enemies like Data Roxas have extremely high magic resistance, so Guard Break's actually better against bosses like that than Explosion. Another kind of niche use for Guard Break is that it does pierce armor. Now, Explosion kind of also does this and gives you iframes, so it is a lot better. But if you're going up against an enemy that can't be hit from the front, usually Guard Break can just pierce through that anyway and does damage. Next, we're going to talk about a support ability that you should usually turn on, especially if you have Master Form to level, and that is Drive Converter. All it does is it converts some of the money that's dropped from enemies into Drive Orbs. Usually it's not enough Drive Orbs to really matter in combat, but this is really good for leveling up Master Form, just having it on. And if you find it on a Keyblade, usually that's the Keyblade that I like to attach to your Master Form. Something pretty notable about Drive Converter is enemies that drop a lot of money will also drop a lot of orbs when Drive Converter is on. The gamblers in Twilight Town 3 are notorious for this. And if you have Jackpot, it actually increases the amount of money that they drop and then converts it to Drive Converter orbs. So multiple Jackpots plus Drive Converter is really good. Now we're going to talk about some abilities that just give you raw damage. Fire Boost, Blizzard Boost, and Thunder Boost. These are pretty simple. All they do is they increase your damage with those elements by 20%. If you have Firaga and you're spamming Final Fire, put on your Fire Boost. It's just more damage. Same with the others. It's almost always useful to have these on if you have the AP for it. It just increases your damage. No downside. Now here's an ability that you normally also start with and sometimes can get on an easy early Keyblade. Draw. Draw belongs in that B tier area to me because it's really useful in fights where you have to pick up orbs, like let's say Hostile Program where you have to pick up the orbs to get the stun meter, or also in Space Paranoids when you're doing screens. Draw just makes it a little bit easier to get everything without having to walk around on top of all the orbs. And it also helps you pick up drive orbs and money and everything so much faster as well. It's useful to just always have as many of these on as you can. And it's not like game breaking or anything, but it will make your life a lot easier. Also, we've already talked about Jackpot a little bit with Drive Converter, but I think Jackpot is also good to just have on all the time. More money means you can afford more ethers or elixirs, and if you combine it with Drive Converter, like I said earlier, you can get more drive orbs that way too. That combined with Draw, it just makes the run easier and faster. Now let's talk about some underrated GOATs in my opinion. These B tier abilities, Drive Boost and Form Boost. So let's talk about Form Boost first actually. Form Boost is simple. Your drive forms last longer. That's it. This can be really useful for some fights like Zigbar, where you want to stay in final as long as possible to carry that combo over. And if you only have a few forms, having those forms capped at like level 3 or 4 is really annoying, getting pushed out of forms early. So Form Boost kind of helps with that. Drive Boost is a little bit more complicated. Drive Boost allows your drive gauge to charge faster, but only when you're in MP charge. That means when your MP bar is pink and you're out of mana. This can be pretty useful, but a lot of times you don't want to be without mana anyway. I put it here next to Form Boost, but I think Form Boost is significantly more important. Next up are the two really important defensive abilities that a lot of people kind of overlook as well. Defender and Damage Control. Defender, giving you 3 extra defense, is actually a lot more relevant than it seems. 3 defense, especially at early levels, is kind of a lot. Damage Control is a little bit worse than Defender in my opinion, because you have to be a lot lower on health, but it does half the damage taken. Both of these abilities are pretty useless when you're down to 1 health though, and that's why Second Chance and Once More are just infinitely better. Okay, also in the B tier is one that gets overlooked a lot. It's Leaf Bracer. The only reason I put Leaf Bracer this high is because it only costs 1 AP. And in runs where you don't have a lot of AP to work with, this is always still an auto include to me. Usually in speedrunning, you're going to want to be healing with your items anyway, so that you don't use up your mana. But in those cases where you need to use Cure, Leaf Bracer does protect you from attacks while you're using the Cure, and items, you never get that invulnerability. So Leaf Bracer can be useful in certain scenarios like that, and I think just having it on is a pretty good, safety net. Now here's one that I don't usually use a lot. I know a lot of people really love to use it and think it's very good in certain fights, and it's Counter Guard. I never really equipped this one myself, but I am not oblivious to its uses, and I'm willing to put it in the B tier, and a lot of people will put it even higher. This one is pretty good for having that immediate retaliation and getting to start your combo again. Also in B tier, I want to talk about Horizontal Slash. This is an ability where you can just press square in the middle of an aerial combo to get that whack, 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 the 3-hit ability that Sora uses in the air. The reason I think this is in the B tier, it doesn't really add to your damage significantly. It does give you a little bit extra damage from your base combo, but it also counts as a finisher. So if you've got an enemy at 1 health and you're in the air, you can hit them with the Horizontal Slash and it will kill without you having to worry about getting to your finishing moves. We'll combine this with another ability later down the list, and it'll make sense why I think, like, combined with other abilities, Horizontal Slash can be very strong, but by itself, I think it belongs in the B tier. Finally, at the bottom of B tier, I gotta put Reaction Boost. Now, Reaction Boost could be put into C tier for me, but I think it's a little bit better than some of those C tier abilities. Reaction Boost increases the damage from your reaction commands by 50%. That's kind of a lot, and it comes up a lot more than you'd expect, especially in some boss fights towards the end of the game. So I think reaction boost actually deserves to be higher up than some of those niche abilities, even though in some fights it's not really useful at all. Okay, now let's talk about the C tier abilities. These are abilities that I think you should use and be aware of, but should not always be on. These abilities can only be used in certain scenarios really well, and if you keep them on, could actually slow your run down. And right at the top of C tier, I'm going to put Berserk Charge. Berserk Charge is the ability that you don't always want on, but you always want to be aware if you have it or not to put it on when you need it. Berserk Charge increases your strength by 2 during MP charge. That 2 strength is not useless, by the way. That is a good amount of strength. And you can continue your combos endlessly. This means that you cannot use a combo finisher. The reason you don't want this on all the time is because those combo finishers are desperately needed to defeat certain enemies and all bosses. The reason I think Berserk Charge is extremely strong though is because of the combination with Horizontal Slash. We talked about Horizontal Slash already and how it can be powerful with other abilities. Berserk Charge Hori Slash can be an infinite combo on certain enemies, and since Horizontal Slash counts as a finisher move, you can get the finishing blow without actually being able to use a finisher, because you can manually use the finisher. Next up is probably the most notorious niche ability in the game, and that's Negative Combo. Negative Combo does the opposite of Combo Plus, where it removes one of the hits from your base combo. So let's say 1, 2, that's my finisher. Instead of it being on the 3rd hit, it's on the 2nd hit. If you have 2 negative combos on, your attack is just 1 hit, and it is always the finisher. This can be really useful with attacks like Magnet Burst to get an AoE finisher, or Explosion to get an AoE finisher, and with Sora's base finisher, just like that one right there. I don't have 2 negative combos here, but imagine if I did, and that 1 hit was the only hit in the combo, okay? There's certain bosses that you can infinitely loop with just that 1 hit. They jump, hit, jump, hit, jump, hit. So, Negative Combo belongs in that C tier niche ability, but it can be extremely powerful. Now, I know I just mentioned it, but here's a great time to bring up Magnet Burst also belongs in this category. This is your aerial AoE finisher. I think this attack can be really strong in certain scenarios, but you don't always want it on, and you especially don't want it on during certain boss fights, because all it does is it pulls enemies in and blasts them away. It's not very good against single targets at all, but it is really good in AoE situations, especially if you have a high magic stat. And like I said a minute ago, if you use it combined with Negative Combo or double Negative Combo, you can just have that blast every second and deal tons of damage AoE. Next in the niche category of C tier, we're going to have Vicinity Break. Vicinity Break replaces your regular attacks with an AoE attack while Sora is surrounded. However, it doesn't do a lot of damage. It can be pretty good in certain scenarios, but I usually don't keep it on. Next are some abilities that I don't think you should ever ignore in a rando seed. Not because they're very strong in combat, save for maybe one, but because they can unlock some checks for you that you normally shouldn't have in logic. These are your auto drive forms. So auto Valor, Wisdom, Limit, Master, and Final. What this does is, if you're at low health and you have enough drive gauge, your reaction command will pop up giving you one of these moves. You can press that triangle button to enter that drive form even if you don't have it in the rando yet. So if you collect auto final before you get final form, you can actually go into final form if you go low health. This can be good to actually level up your forms during your rando seed without actually having that form. Just be aware though, your level cap for your forms does not go up by collecting an auto form. So if all you have is an auto wisdom or something, and you don't have any other drive forms, wisdom can only still get to level 2 until you collect a drive form. However, if you're like really searching for Valor form and you have all the other forms, you can have auto Valor on and actually level Valor to level 6. This could get you a check that's deeper in logic and make your runs way faster. Also, I guess worth noting that auto limit is probably the only one that is kind of viable to actually use. I don't usually keep it on because sometimes it gets in the way of your other reaction commands, but since limit can be used at any time, even when you don't have party members, auto limit's probably the best one to use in any scenario. So if you get low health, you can just press triangle to go into limit. But personally, I would just get better at menuing down to your drive menu and then using limit form manually. Now let's talk about another ability that a lot of people don't use, and I really don't use that much either, but it's magic lock-on. I see a lot of newer players automatically equipping this and then struggling in fights because their magic is targeting enemies that they don't want to target. For example, with magnet, you usually want the magnet to be right above Sora so that you can follow up with another combo or something. And with magic lock-on, the magnet's always going to home in on an enemy instead and be farther away from you. There are certain rooms in the game where magic lock-on is actually pretty good. I like to use it in Port Royal and spam thunders on the pirates that are jumping onto the ship so that I kill them immediately. But then again, it's just a matter of locking on and then pressing thunder most of the time anyway. Magic lock-on usually just isn't worth it. Next up we have summon boost and combination boost. These can be pretty good, but usually you don't really need them. They increase the duration of your summons and your limit commands. So honestly, most of your limit commands are powerful enough as it is, and you don't really need to increase the duration of them. And same with the summons, as long as you're using them properly, you shouldn't need to boost the time that you use them for. A lot of times the summon's going to stay out long enough anyway. Same with the limit command. They also cost a lot of AP for what they do, and it's just not worth it most of the time. Now we're going to talk about a controversial one that I think belongs in the mid tier, the C tier, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people think that it's really bad, and it's because you have to take damage to activate the ability, and that's MP Rage. I think MP Rage can be really useful in unique situations, especially with limit form. Now, with limit form, you spend your mana, use a limit ability, and then you heal when you deal damage with that ability. With MP Rage equipped and limit form on, you can go into limit, use an ability, spend some mana, gain your health back, and then if you get knocked down to 1 with second chance, you can usually get your mana back to use another limit ability and then heal again. A lot of people call this MP Rage abuse, especially when used with limit form. I think that use case is pretty rare, but it's useful enough to mention, and I think it belongs in the mid tier just because of that. And finally, at the bottom of the C tier, the bottom of the niche use cases tier, I'm going to put the MP Haste, MP Hastera, and MP Hastega abilities. These can be less of a niche use than MP Rage and more of a general use, but they're just more mana. It's faster mana regen. Usually you're going to want to use an item anyway. If you're stocked up on items, these literally don't matter. MP Rage could matter in certain scenarios, even with items. These almost never matter. If you have no items and no money, and you want your MP to regen faster, this is actually really good. But conserve your mana. Try not to ever run out of mana. This shouldn't really be needed. Also, it kind of is a non-bow with Berserk Charge, because if you want to stay in Berserk Charge, MP Haste abilities make Berserk Charge a lot faster and put you back into a regular state, which you do not want. These abilities are just kind of useless in my opinion. I tack them on when I have enough AP for them, but that's about it. Okay, now let's talk about some abilities I think belong in the D tier. They're okay, but they're actually just not good for speed. So I'd say avoid these abilities most of the time. At the top of this tier, I'm going to put Aerial Sweep, because if you don't have Aerial Dive, Aerial Sweep is actually pretty good to put on, but as soon as you grab Aerial Dive, I think you should take Sweep off. Aerial Sweep will activate if you're directly below an enemy, and it's when Sora spins up into the air to attack him. Aerial Dive will activate when you're under that enemy if Sweep is off. So Dive pretty much is just better in every way, and having Sweep on is going to get you Sweep in some cases where you want Dive. This ability doesn't do a lot of damage compared to Dive. It's just slower. It's just not as good. But if you don't have Dive, Sweep is okay, which is why it belongs at the top of this D tier. Now we're going to talk about the next ability in D tier, which is Aerial Finish. I never equip aerial finish. I do not like aerial finish. I think it's very slow. I think it doesn't do enough damage for how slow it is. It does have some good like armor breaking properties, but you lose control of Sora for about a second when you press the button. You cannot cancel it into other attacks, even with finishing plus. It is just, in my opinion, not good. Here's aerial finish. That's that one button. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how long it takes for me to cancel out of aerial finish into another attack with finishing plus. You can get back onto the ground and then start another aerial combo before the amount of time that aerial finish takes to actually complete its attack. It's really slow. I don't like it. In my opinion, you shouldn't use it. Okay, next up is upper slash. I think upper slash can be kind of useful, but most of the time it's not. If you want to dodge roll out of your combo, it usually gets in the way. And finishing leap is just a better version of upper slash. Upper slash, however, can be a manual finisher if you need that, like if you're in berserk charge or something. But other than that, there's really no good value out of it. And most of the time, you don't really need to do that long string combo anyway to knock them into the air and then do another combo afterwards. It's just not necessary. Especially if you have an attack like finishing leap, it's just worse. It's just not worth it. And lastly, for D tier, I'm going to have to end it off with another ability that's just worse than a different one. Retaliating Slash is just aerial recovery, but worse. Now, some new players might think this is actually better than aerial recovery because you snap back into the fight just like aerial recovery and you come back with an attack. Now, a lot of times that's not very useful because you're dashing forward, you're swinging at the enemy, and aerial recovery can get you out of danger, whereas retaliating slash puts you back into the danger. There's not as many iframes, and a lot of times it will get you killed just using it instead of aerial recovery. I don't recommend using this one. There's some times where it can be pretty good, but I generally just never use it. Now, finally, I'm going to introduce the very few abilities that I think belong in the F tier. F tier. Like, do not put these abilities on, please. I do not think they are good. They might actively harm your run. The first one here is Dodge Slash. A lot of new players use Dodge Slash. I see it all the time, and it is ugly. It's gross. I hate it. It's that ability where Sora is scooting forward, shuffling, and swinging his Keyblade around. It's similar to what I said about Aerial Finisher, where it takes too long to get to the next attack. The attacks take forever. It's a lot of multi-hits that do very little damage. And Dodge Slash has an even worse property where sometimes it just freaking misses. It doesn't even hit sometimes. It's not all the time, but when it does happen, it's really bad. You want to take this ability off. Just use a regular combo. Now, here's a weird one. For a lot of Kingdom Hearts players out there, these are some of the best abilities in their mind. But in my opinion, and to a lot of speedrunners, Combo Plus, Air Combo Plus, not very good. Generally, you want to be getting to your finisher moves way faster than having another filler move in between. A lot of times, your fights are going to be extended just because of this. If your combo boosts are on, I know it actually increases the damage of that finisher by 10% by adding a Combo Plus, but getting more finishers off quicker is more damage and more chances to deal a final blow because you need a finishing move to kill the boss. Okay, now finally, there's two abilities that I think are actually completely useless in Rando. Auto Summon, don't use it. It's not worth it. You do not need to summon something that fast. You do not need to replace your reaction commands with a random summon. Please don't do that. Don't use auto summon. It's bad. You don't want it. You'd never want to put it on. And of course, everybody knows, no experience. No experience is fun. It's there for level 1 runs. It's really not used for anything else. Putting this on, you will not get experience. Don't do it. And if you're playing in critical mode, you probably start with this ability. So make sure you don't accidentally put it on. Okay, that's it. That's every single ability in Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. And whether or not I think they're useful in the randomizer, specifically for speedrunning. If you like this video or if you learned something, leave a comment, like, subscribe, whatever. If you want more videos like this explaining beginner concepts of rando and talking about like different types of magic, different types of forms, what limits are good, what not, I can make videos on that too. Just let me know in the comments. I will make more. And if you're really new to this and you haven't tried the KH2 Rando out, check out the link in my description. It is the link to the Kingdom Hearts 2 Randomizer webpage. There are tutorials on how to set it up and links to the Discord. The community is amazing. I recommend 100%. This is my favorite game ever. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.